Hello everyone and welcome to this video about hair punching. Let's start the video from the end and show some pictures of the finished head. This is a silicone head and all the hair you see on it has been punched in by hand to look like it's growing out of it. So, how do you do it? What do you need to do it? The most common way still today to punch hair is to use a traditional punch needle. A traditional punch needle you can make yourself by taking an ordinary sewing needle with a small eye, take a Dremel tool and cut the eye in half in a slight angle and sharpen it, and then you will have a really nice little fork in the front. So that takes us to the crown punch needle, which is the easiest way I've ever found to punch hair with. It is a crown of hooks, and you have these hooks going all the way around the needle tip, so you don't have to fold the hair or nothing. You just hold the hair straight out and punch straight in. So here you can see an illustration of what it looks like close up. So, you got the needles. What do you need now? The obvious thing is, of course, hair. For beards, I like to use buffalo hair because it's a little bit coarser, it's thicker. For most other things, I use normal human hair. Sometimes it can also be useful to have a very, very fine hair. And in this case, on this picture you can see some mohair, but you can also use wool and other things. Then you need all the basic stuff. You need a pair of scissors, comb, brushes, you need hair wax, hairspray, you need a hair clipper. It's not essential, but it makes life so much easier when making a beard. You need hair irons. But the most important thing you are going to need, and need lots of, is time. So let's get started with it. This is a Platgel 10 head, silicone head, and I've painted it already with Fuse FX colors. I've painted with my own mix of silicone and grease paint colors. So now you see I've laid everything out, all the pictures of the original guys on the wall. I've taken all the color samples I need. You need to be quite careful when you're choosing the colors of the hair and quality and everything, so I'm using a wig maker's little book, like you can see on the right down here, with different color matches, and I write it down really carefully. So looking at the pictures of him, I'm taking a white eyebrow pencil just to make a little sketch on where the outer edges of the beard, hairline, eyebrows, everything is. The reason I'm using the eyebrow pencil is that it's easy to take it away afterwards. You just dip a little brush in alcohol and it just goes away. And if you're using a black marker, then it's quite a big risk that you're pushing some of the black pen or pencil down into the silicone as well, and you are creating something that looks like a little spot. Doing this, I refer constantly to my pictures. I think I took about maybe 150 pictures of the guy because he lived quite far away, and I needed to have all the info when I was doing it. Here you can see my sketch of all the color numbers that I'm going to use, and the book that I referred the colors from. It's very important that you find a hair with the correct amount of whiteness and also the base color is the same. So here now I've found a good color hair to start off in the bottom of the neck, and I think at first here I'm using the 36 needle because down here it's not going to be that visible, so I'm taking a little bit coarser needle. It's a bit easier to get the hairs in with it, and as you see I'm just pushing the needle straight through. There's always a couple of hairs that get stuck. Not every time, but quite a number of times you get hairs pulled through with the crown. And down here I'm also referring to my pictures on how much volume the beard should have around here, and looking at the direction of growth, because you have to think a little bit backwards here, thinking exactly how the hair is coming out, and then you have to push the needle in this exact same angle as the hair is going to be growing out of it. Under the chin here you're going to see I'm pushing fairly in a 90-degree angle, but in some places I'm gonna have to lean the needle down to lie almost like horizontal to the head. This is human hair I'm using. His beard wasn't that coarse, so I decided not to have buffalo hair at the bottom here. Some of the white hair I'm using later on, it's buffalo, but this is human hair. You can mix as you wish. But hair is expensive, so you saw me cutting off the hair earlier, and then I'm just reusing the same hair over and over again, which is also good because you get the exact same color mix that way. And you see now that I'm angling the needle a bit more. It's not sticking straight out from the chin now, it's actually leaning towards sticking straight down instead. That is so I shouldn't get too much hair sticking straight out and looking unnatural. This is going to be very obvious when we do the eyebrows later on, because then that is very important with the angles there. It's a lot of punching. When I'm up just under the lip, I think that's when I changed to the 38 needle, which is a bit finer. If you're trying to do buffalo hair though with the 38 needle, it doesn't really work because the hairs are too thick. They can't really be taken with the 38 needle. Or if there's a needle it's called 40 as well, which is very, very fine, and then you really have to have a very thin human hair or wool or mohair. I do have yet another needle which is called 19, which I still really haven't figured out what to use for because it's incredibly coarse and it's grabbing an incredible amount of hair at the same time. I guess it could be used if you're doing an incredibly dense punch on a back of a creature or something like that, where you are gonna punch a lot finer in the front. Good tip to keep your needles apart is to put like different colored tape at the end. You can see when I'm working here, I've got a little bit of gray tape on the needle, and for me that means number 38. So it's a lot of video of the same thing. You saw that I was cutting the hair there, and I tried to keep the hair fairly short cut in my hand and not sticking out too much, because if the hair is too long on the other side, it can be that you get two hairs sticking out of the hole, and you really don't want that. You want it to be one hair coming out. That is what makes this technique so much nicer, in my opinion, to the traditional punch needle. In the traditional punch needle, you always have two hairs coming out, and for some things that can be quite useful, like in eyelashes. I think it looks great, but for a beard you really want it to be one hair per follicle. Always feels a bit cruel when you're up there and punching in the, it kind of feels sometimes that you're punching straight into skin. This is a good thing, that you can actually go in when you've cut the hair so short. I can go in and just keep punching straight through all of it, and once the crown punch has grabbed a hair, it will just move it past the other hairs and just implant it into the silicone behind all the other hairs. It's not that it's creating weird patterns or nothing. You can just keep on punching. Nice little close-up shot of how it happens. As you can see, I'm holding and dragging the needle at the same time when I'm pushing it in. Just when I meet the silicone with the tip, I kind of apply a little bit pressure to lean it down. Here you can see clearly how I'm working the angles of the growth. The back there, it's really growing backwards. Then you need to, like I'm showing here, find all the directions in the hair. I think all in all, this entire head took me about 5 hours of efficient work, so it's a very fast technique. This video is about half an hour, so I've cut it quite hard. You wouldn't want to sit and watch this for 5 hours. I doubt that you are going to want to watch it straight for half an hour either, but I kept it quite a long video because sometimes I feel that it's always something you wanted to have seen. So then it's better that you just fast forward instead to jump to the next chapter on the DVD or on the web version. The hair clippers here are just so much easier than cutting it by hand. I just asked him what length he cuts his own beard, and I stuck to the same length. You're gonna see on the pictures, the final pictures, where I'm comparing the magician who this was, and the head. That his hair is slightly shorter, and his beard as well. But that was because he was growing his hair for a show he was producing. So I had to kind of imagine what his hair would be like in 3 months' time when it was supposed to premiere. That is always a bit tricky though. It would be easier to do exactly the same as him. And then it's always tricky to get things exactly as you wanted anyway. Like I had problems getting the density. His beard was so incredibly dense, so I just couldn't punch that much hair into the silicone. So at the top of the chin, I would really have wanted to have a bit denser hair there, but it just didn't really want to do it. It was so perforated. And also his beard hair was incredibly white at the very front. I didn't have any hair that was that white. Okay, the beard is done now, so this is compressed air. I'm just blowing out all the leftover little hairs. Just to see where it needed more. After everything was filmed for this video, I added on a bit more afterwards as well. Once I got to meet him, and I punched in a little bit extra. I'm drawing the eyebrows again, refilling, looking carefully at all the pictures I have. This is a bit probably the hardest thing to punch, to an eyebrow to look realistic, because we have so many directions in our eyebrows and they're all a bit different. So at the end of the eyebrow, it's kind of working its way towards the middle, both from above and the bottom part here. So you see now I'm doing the lower half going up, going inwards, and the upper part here, as I'm doing now, is going to go inwards as well, creating hairs that are meeting in the middle. If I would do a woman's eyebrow punching, I would make sure I had the softest hair possible. I would most likely use mohair. When I get a little bit further into the eyebrow, you can see I'm just working more or less the same direction. I'm not. Here you can see a good little illustration on all the directions, the growth directions of the hair. Of course, it can differ from person to person, but in this case, this was the pattern I had. For a female eyebrow, where you are gonna try to mimic that, it's very well plucked hairs, or of course then it would be hardly no directions at all. It would be just going straight. I'm just cutting it fairly rough to begin with. I want quite a lot of hair to work with when I'm taking the cutting irons out. just keep on doing it. I left quite a lot of the eyebrow video in here because I know a lot of people wonder a lot about the punch directions. So if you get bored with it, just fast forward. You see here in the beginning of the eyebrow, I'm using the finest needle I've got. At least you didn't have to see that part being done. And something you should experiment a lot with is putting the head in different angles, just to make it as easy for yourself to get the hairs in the correct angle without straining yourself. If you look closely here, you can see that the needle is actually bending to lie quite flat to the head. I don't want these hairs to stick out too much, and that is very important. You need to get down in level with the skin. Takes a while to do, but it's fun work because you really feel that the head is coming alive when the hair is on there. So again, leaving a little bit too much hair in there. And this is a thick hair wax. I like to have a little bit of wax in it when it's time for the curling iron. But I'm gonna do the eyelashes before I curl it. It's kind of good to put the wax on a little bit early. And now I'm gonna show you using the crown punch needle to do eyelashes. And you see, it's very difficult to get the placement correct, and then also it becomes a little bit too thin. So I pull those hairs back out, and now you're gonna see how I work with the traditional punch needle. Because with the eyelashes, I like the fact that there's more than one hair coming out in every follicle. You see, it takes a lot longer to do this, to do it this method. Here I'm not even bothered, since the hair is actually stuck inside a crease. I don't care about if I get one or two hairs at a time. And these hairs, I don't cut them at all until I've curled them the first time. And you really have to curl eyelashes. When they're straight, it looks terrible. And then go to the other eye. It's a little bit different angle here. You can see how I'm actually going in underneath the eyelid. I always hated punching beards and eyebrows and things with these needles because it's so difficult to hold them correctly, so you only get one hair out of every follicle. And you have to, like here I can fold the hair in half because I don't care if it's visible or not. But if you want only one hair to come out, you have to fold it at the very end and then punch it deep enough so the short end of the hair is disappearing into the silicone. This is a little curling iron, or what we call a moustache iron, and it's flat in the middle and not rounded, but it is round at the tip, and I'm using that to just fold the hair around it, and then I'm using like a little curling motion to get it up there. And you see how easy it is when I'm having the hair to hold on to. So don't be too quick in cutting the hair. I'm going to see here now when I go into close-up how the hair is nicely curled. It wasn't a close-up now, it will be one later, I guess. This is the great way about thing about having silicone to punch into, because you don't really have to be worried. This iron now here is about 200 degrees hot, and the silicone just don't care about it. And in the beginning of my career I did wax heads and other things, and that was just a nightmare to style, because you couldn't get that curling iron closer than a centimeter or half an inch before the wax started to melt. But silicone is fantastic. I can, as you see here now, I'm just pushing it down on the silicone to get the angles of the head to my liking. Now you see the eyebrows and things are nicely styled. Now we got a whole head of hair to punch as well. Sometimes, or most of the time, I would most likely use a wig for something like this. But since it was half a head and his hair was so thinning, I didn't think it was worth the effort to sacrifice, or the money for that matter, to sacrifice part of a wig to do this. So I just sat down and punched the whole thing. Another reason was, of course, that I was making this video and I wanted to show as much punch work as possible. You see, you can get pretty fast with it. This is the 36 needle, the bigger of needles for normal hair. You just slide it down through the hair and doing it fairly close to the tips. There you can see a good close-up on the eyelashes. And nicely curled. And it always looks better to punch the eyelashes than to use a false eyelash and try to glue that on there. It just never feels right. It's better to take the punch needle out and do it. You do it in just minutes basically. Now you can see at the top there as well that I've started to draw a little bit with the white eyebrow pencil, because you can't do all the hair straight backwards. He had quite a lot of what do you call it, when the hair is going the wrong direction. I don't know. English is not my first language, but I'm trying to mimic his hair growth as closely as I can. Now I've done the front as well, and working my way to the back. Sometimes it's better to do this, since his hair is actually growing forwards in the front. Then I wanted to do that first. And now I'm almost at the I damaged the silicone head a little bit when I was trying to get it out of the mold, and luckily it was going to be hair over there. You can see a mark of a screwdriver at the very top of his head. The head is filled with a polyfoam, and it's a foam called R8. I think it's from Alva. I buy it from Old Life in England. It's great foam. But a problem with using any kind of polyurethane foam in silicone skins, that is that it doesn't attach itself to it. So what I do is when I've brushed in the silicone skin, I just take a piece of towel and cut it up in small strip and just glue that into the silicone. And before I pour I glue it with silicone onto the silicone, and then the polyfoam will grab really nicely onto the towel, and it will never come apart. This is a rigid foam as well, so then it's really easy for the foam to just pop off. Now you get to try out your hairdressing skills. I have no formal training to do hair cutting, but I've been doing it for nearly 20 years now anyway. So, but it's very, very different to cut a hair on a puppet, or cut a human hair on someone. And then yet again, it's a different technique to cut a wig, because when you're cutting a puppet or you're cutting a wig, sometimes you want to deliberately make a bad haircut, because you know that you want to cover certain areas, or you want it to look thicker in parts. Like in this head, for instance, I knew that we didn't have a back head with hair, so I wanted to keep a little bit extra on the sides, so that would kind of fold over the back of the head. And also the magician here, he said that he was going to grow his own hair a little bit, so I had to plan for that. And when you're cutting a wig, you can never cut it as short as you would with a normal human head, because simply then the lace will be visible through the hair, and you can't have that. Here I'm using a combination of curling irons and just a normal fan, a hot air fan, shaping the hair just with heat to give it a little bit of wave. can see that the hair is sticking out behind the head a little bit, and that is because I didn't want it to look like the head just finished there. I wanted to be able to keep following the line when you saw the head from the front. Well, here I'm using a curling iron to lift the hairline to the desired look. And here you have the finished head. It took about 5 hours of work and a lot of patience, but now it's done. I'm happy that you have looked at this video, and I hope you learned a thing or two about the wonderful art of hair punching. It takes patience, but it's worth it because it makes any puppet so alive. So now we're going to look at a little detail of the forehead there. And here comes a still photo of when they first met, the puppet and the master. And a final shot of the puppet outdoors. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope you will watch any future videos where we will make here. Okay, thank you very much.